Hello, and welcome to our panel on the business of esports. We have a great group here today. We have Brandon Beck, who is co-CEO of Riot Games, Kevin Lin, CEO of Twitch, Gregory Milken, co-owner of Immortals, which is an esports team. He's also at March Capital Partners. And then Matt Wolf, who is VP of Entertainment, Entertainment at Coca-Cola, is that right? Yeah. Who's also part of the esports world now. So esports is a new world for a lot of you, I'm sure. So before we get started, we're going to show a little video which Riot Games has put together to give you a sense of what competitive video gaming looks like.
That was a 3-0 sweep.
They will be the Season 3 World Champions here at the Staples Center. Live from Shanghai Grand Stage in China. And the faithful shall be rewarded. What can they ban? What can they do? TSM has to think about Game 2 already. This sounds so right for the 2014 World Champion.
Two strong teams, but only one will be crowned the champions.
Be your first ever two-time world champions.
So obviously this is just one piece of the esports empire because this is just what Riot Games is doing. But it gives you a sense of the excitement and the energy around esports right now. It's the fastest growing spectator sport. And as you can see, it's drawing massive audiences to watch it in person. There are 100 million people who watch it every day online, but it's still a relatively new business in terms of the revenue it's generating. It's only generating about $500 million in revenue this year. The majority of that is in the United States, but it's growing really fast, and that's expected to double over the next 2 years. Part of that is companies like Coca-Cola spending increasing numbers in terms of sponsorship. So I just want to start off this conversation by getting a sense of what each of you is doing in the esports arena right now. And let's start with you and Riot.
Sure. So Riot is a publisher and developer of a game called League of Legends. League has evolved a competitive sort of scene and ecosystem around the game of professional players and professional leagues that have increasingly large spectator audiences. And so we also help produce the sport and commission the league.
So at Twitch, at the core, we're a global live video distribution platform. So we power a lot of esports broadcasts as it's broadcast pretty much everywhere. So we're accessible in most countries around the world, and we're trying to build a good ecosystem around that. So media spending, we have a sales team that does all the advertising sales. Against that content, we're starting to build additional revenue models around that, subscription-based, potentially more flexible revenue as well. But the thing we're really working on this year is building tools to help game companies like Riot really understand what it means to develop an esport. If you spend a lot of money on an esports program, you should understand what it means to get a viewer back into the game and what that flywheel looks like. So we're looking to build tools to do that and also just make the content a little bit more compelling for the audience.
And just to give a sense of your scale, you were bought by Amazon in 2014 for almost $1 billion, and you have about 100 million viewers.
So we have 100 million monthly actives. It's about 10 million daily actives on the platform. North America is our biggest region. About 40% of our audience is in North America, another 40% in Western Europe, and then the rest sort of scattered about. But we're looking to grow East Asia, South America. Engagement is pretty crazy, so it's about 2 hours per day. So very, very nearing on television engagement for the audience. And a big part of it that I missed for folks that haven't actually watched Twitch, chat's a big part of the content that's so it's very participatory. And oftentimes the chat is just as entertaining as the content itself, for better or for worse sometimes. But that's the goal, is not to just build TV for the internet. It's really about building a new type of interactive medium. Another big part of what we do is esports growing up in the digital age. It's really easy for anyone to stream. So unlike traditional sports, you can get access to athletes. You can talk to them. You can even play games with them, and you can watch them. And these athletes make income on Twitch by getting exposure, by getting subscribers and donations, and it helps support their careers as esports is quite nascent. So it helps really bolster the ability for them to play the game full time.
Certainly a developing business model right now, which we'll get more into. Now, Gregory, you come at this from the perspective of an investor. Yes. So, and you were a gamer before, and then you decided to invest in a team. What's your approach? Why did you decide to invest in a team?
Well, I still am a gamer, so gaming is still part of my life and what I do on a daily basis. It's a passion of mine. But owning a team was very interesting to me. I think, as people might rightly have, there's always a little bit of ego involved. So I think people always think, wouldn't it be cool to own a sports team, and I always thought it'd be fun to own a hockey team. I'm a big fan of the NHL. So when I saw what was happening in the space, having been a gamer and being involved in the space, the leagues have really been coming up and the teams are becoming more and more important and generating more revenue. So I saw it was a real opportunity to get in on the ground floor of something that I think will be worth a lot of money as a franchise in a few years. So I'm a co-owner of Immortals. It's a team that competes in North America for League of Legends, the LCS. And that's exciting to me because it's taking on the role of, all the aspects of traditional sports. There are players who could become celebrities. As a team owner, we have a stake in the team and the ownership and sort of the merchandising and the sponsorship dollars that come through that. So there's a huge chance for revenue generation. And we're driving lots of fans and gaining lots of fans who love to follow our players as they compete.
And at March Capital Partners, do you think there's an opportunity to invest for the fund to invest as well?
So I definitely think there's opportunity in the esports space for March Capital Partners. We do venture and growth investing, typically Series A technology companies. So we already have an investment in the space in a company that's sort of tangential, Dojo Madness, and they do strategy analysis for competitive gamers to give them advice on how to play the game and be better gamers and hopefully win their game. So that's tangential to the space, and it's definitely an esports competitive gaming space. So we'll always look for technology companies that we want to make investments in. But from a league ownership, team, franchise perspective, we're a venture firm, and that's really not an investment we would make. It's just a personal passion of mine.
But Dojo and the fact that there are companies like that out there indicates just how big this ecosystem is.
Yes, I mean, when you hear, how many people are watching the streams and how many people are monthly active users on Riot's League of Legends games, there's an audience of tens of millions of people out there who will pay for services that are either in the game or tangential to the game that enhance their experience. And we look at that from March Capital Partners' perspective.
Now, Matt, when did you bring Coca-Cola into the esports business?
When did I? We started about 3 years ago. It was an interesting approach from a brand standpoint into a form of entertainment and competition that really, at least in the Western world, hadn't been hadn't had non-endemic brands in it in the way that I thought we could lend value with. And so when we first started conversations with Brandon and Mark over at Riot, it was at that point for me kind of a no-brainer. I mean, we have, even then the numbers were there. It was a fairly green pasture space for non-endemic brands to play, so it was fairly quiet. And we felt like we could, sort of gain more than our fair share of voice if we were crafty and clever, and most importantly, meaningful and authentic about what we brought. And so that's when it began. Of course, I had a bit of an advantage in that my history before I got to Coca-Cola was I was also in the game space. And Brandon and I knew Brandon and Mark from way back when they first began, and they actually gave me the first glimpse into what esports was. I remember those days well, and it was great because I sort of had that advantage coming in at Coke. But you can imagine on the other side, and I think for many people in the room probably, it's like esports is what? It's people watching people playing games for competition, money, and fame. Like that makes zero sense. And I work at a very big company and a very, very big brand, and there was some of that there as well. And so it's been a climb and it's been a pursuit, and we've worked very hard with the team over time to make sure that our brand presence is authentically felt by the playing community, by the game makers, in a way that makes sense. And we're continuing to do so and change gears and do what we need to do to now stay ahead as the space begins to attract more and more non-endemic brands and collect more and more attention, and the stakes increase even more, given viewership and revenue and profit and all that stuff coming in.
So tell us exactly, where is Coca-Cola in this space? Sponsorship, advertising, and where do you see Coca-Cola going as esports become more mainstream?
Well, I prefer to look at us as more of a partner than a sponsor. And the reason is because, everybody around the world mostly knows, I mean, unless you live under a really, really big rock, what Coca-Cola is. So it's not so much about the brand, it's really for us about the role that the product plays and the role that we play as a company to help celebrate fandom around the sport. And we have lots of brands, and we've decided to use Coca-Cola as the primary brand now facing this, but we have other brands as well, and each brand has its own role. I believe that over time, the company will continue to face this space, but there are lots of different permutations of games that are played by fans. Some are MOBA games like Riot, some are FPS games, some are now mobile games coming onto the scene, and we, as given the size of the brand, we have to sort of look at the whole landscape holistically. And again, I can't be specific, but we are definitely, in the space, and we're really passionate and very, very excited about continuing to lean into it around the world. We will have never activated in 2016 bigger than we have with Riot, which is exciting to us. We announced a new partnership actually yesterday with Blizzard and a new esports game they have called Overwatch, which is exciting to us. And we'll continue to play around in this space in ways that, again, bring value to the universe and the players first, are good for our partners, and are good for our brands and our products.
It's kind of amazing when you look at the size of esports that it isn't a bigger business still. Less than $500 million in revenue this year is kind of shocking if you think about how many people are watching and how many eyeballs that is in terms of sponsorship, advertising, et cetera. Tell me a little bit about what's holding back esports. The lack of, sort of the fragmentation of the business. I don't know if you want to speak to that. There's been a big push to sort of unify things.
Well, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. So we haven't hired a single salesperson at the company. Because figuring out kind of the revenue side is something that we think matters less than actually building a great product and great experience at this phase, and is something that we know will happen. We know that if we're selling out arenas and having enormous viewership of a great experience, then it's only a matter of time before advertisers begin to sort of understand the opportunity and so on and so forth. Our focus is making sure that there's a healthy enough ecosystem that players can actually, dedicate their job, their career to playing the game, so we can have a high quality of play and an exciting career for professional players, for coaches, for analysts, for the whole ecosystem. And we're extremely confident that over time, as the world starts to understand what this is, and it starts to be less sort of a crazy notion, as Matt was talking about, that that the business and sort of top line revenue end will start to sort of take care of itself.
It does seem like there's a little bit of a tipping point happening right now. Activision made a big hire from ESPN to run its esports business, which speaks to sort of the mainstream ESPN-esque potential. Activision is investing in an esports division. You have Turner partnering with IMG. They're going to be starting to broadcast an esports tournament on television at the end of this month. What do you think is happening right now? Is this a tipping point?
I would definitely say it's a tipping point happening right now. I think, part of the problem, the reason that there isn't a lot of revenue, and, we're looking at where this is happening and where people are viewing is different than what people are used to. So TV has changed, and we all understand that people are moving away from TV. But when a lot of people are watching this on Twitch as a platform, and that's a different place than people are used to putting their advertising dollars. So we haven't fully seen the advertising dollars come into the space. So I think we've definitely reached the tipping point in terms of number of people that are watching it, care about it, show up for events. What needs to happen now is we need to activate all the brands and sponsors and other people to come into space to drive more revenue. And even merchandising, I think is a huge other revenue stream that hasn't been fully exploited by the teams or anyone else in the space. You think of all the T-shirts, hats, apparel that's sold by traditional sports teams. I don't think we've really reached that point yet in the esports space, and fans will pay for this stuff.
So what's it going to take to do that, and who's going to be the one to cash in on that?
Well, hopefully, it will be the team owners, Riot. I think Twitch, will participate. I think, we're going to see a lot more brands, spending in the space, like Coca-Cola. And, I think it'll probably be distributed throughout the ecosystem in terms of the publishers, the content distributors, the broadcasters, the teams themselves. And everybody will probably participate.
What about Twitch? You have YouTube investing heavily in this space. What does it mean for you when all these bigger rivals are trying to get in on what you've been doing for years?
Yeah, I think it's healthy for the space. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still in its nascency. Technically, esports has been around for almost 20 years, but this resurgence has really only started 5 years ago with penetration of broadband and sort of technologies catching up to that. And you mentioned sort of what's holding it back. I think it's more just, what do we as an industry really need to do to move this forward? And it's about having conversations with brands. It's about talking to your friends about it and really getting the word out that this is happening so that it's not just the endemic audience and it starts to branch out. In some cases, people like Turner coming in are really good for the industry. Jury's out on whether or not this will work on television, right? It's a different kind of format. TV has different types of restrictions. Same reason why it took so long for soccer to penetrate the United States, because it doesn't fit that typical commercial format. Now, is it solvable? Yes. But what a lot of people don't realize is you look at the top games in esports today, virtually none of them were actually developed with esports in mind. Right, the tool set, the spectator cameras, like how the game is played and how it's observed, were just built to be great games. And only now are you starting to see games that are truly being developed with this concept in mind, taking multiplayer and competitive gameplay now to the spectator. You still got to build great games, but now that people are thinking about it, the next generation of games, so to speak, will probably be better for that. And when it comes to sponsors and merchandising and all of that, sort of all the economics around it, we see, we have a lot of brands buying media on Twitch, a lot of non-endemic brands. So consumer packaged goods companies, quick serve restaurants, Hollywood, they're all really coming in. And we're actually trying to push them to think about sponsoring instead. And I think that's sort of the natural progression. I mean, the detriment, so to speak, of esports growing up now is that there's this it's a weird time in an entertainment space where money is attempting to shift from television to digital, and it's accelerating, right? You look at TV still making really big bets on long-term sports content, right? Turner CBS just re-upped their March Madness deal for another 8 years for a lot of money. Very risky move. I think it's a smart move, but it's a very risky move when you see that content moving to digital. You see sports teams coming up with their own, or sports or organizations coming up with their own platforms, and as that audience grows, more and more brands will feel more comfortable spending digitally, and they want to reach our audience, right? The average age on Twitch is 28, very, very young. and you can't really find that on television anymore. So we're seeing that happening in media, and I think it's our job as an industry to have those conversations together with these brands to say, look, there's teams, there's leagues that you can sponsor, there's different opportunities aside from just buying media, and that's all of our jobs to do.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about who the target audience is for esports, but before, you were talking about putting esports on TV and the fact that this is a demographic that doesn't really watch TV. So on one hand, that makes it good for targeting ads to them on Twitch, but on the other hand, it raises big questions about this idea that Turner is going to be broadcasting these tournaments starting at the end of the month. Do you think that there's a big risk that Turner Broadcasting esports is not going to do well, and that's going to drive the traditional media companies away from thinking seriously about esports?
It's a good question. I wish I'd know. We'll know soon. I mean, I hope it works. I think for the industry, it's very important that it is successful. For someone like Turner to come in, bring their expertise in sports, bring their expertise in great video production, and more importantly, bring the exposure to esports of that traditional audience that watches other sports or other Turner content, other TV content. Now, our audience, by and large, doesn't watch cable, but if they present the content in a compelling enough way, people will tune in. And that's actually good for us too, right? Because there's plenty of content outside of Turner content that people might get interested in. And that's sort of what makes Twitch hum, is we're 24/7, right? You've got over 10,000 channels live at any given moment, thousands of games represented. So if you have your favorite game, you can tune in. So we really want it to work. The format, the execution, obviously super important. But I think that by bringing it to the mainstream, we were talking just before the panel about how my own parents still don't really know what Twitch is. And only when they heard the NPR segment were they like, oh, okay, cool, now I get it, kind of, still. But I think that will help. That will help. It'll help brands feel a little bit more comfortable to come in. And it may open up new revenue opportunities as well. So I think it's important. I think if it works, great. I think other media companies will adopt it. If it doesn't work, I don't think it'll hurt the space that much. I think media companies will have to say, okay, actually, we need to take a digital platform approach rather than a traditional television approach. And what I think will work for television is actually something lacking in the space that, frankly, and I'm not just saying this because Brandon's here, only a handful of companies do this well, and I think Riot's one of them, is telling all the stories around the leagues and the players. There's not really an observable human element to esports. Every player is represented by their avatars in game, or sometimes only a fraction of a weapon that's exposed in the game, and a lot of storytelling isn't happening. A lot of other games are very fragmented. But what you can do as a media company, and I think a lot of these guys are great storytellers, they can come in and tell those stories and develop the rivalries and so on. So I think, if nothing else, that will work for television, I believe. But we're all sort of fingers crossed that E-League is successful.
We had a conference call before the panel, and one of the most interesting parts to me was the idea that there was kind of a debate about who the target audience is for esports. Who are the viewers? Is it just millennial males, or is it much more diverse than that?
It's pretty diverse, actually. So millennial males, biggest representation. Like I said, our average age is 28. It ebbs and flows with what games pop up. But because there's so many different content creators out there, we have 2 million unique broadcasters, individuals and corporations that broadcast on Twitch. And they're from all walks of life, male, female, all over the world. So I think as this whole industry grows, you'll see diversity of audience. I mean, you go to events out in Asia, and it's almost 50-50 male, female. You look at the gaming population as a whole, people who play games, it's basically 50-50, right? So it's just a matter of time for that diverse group to really tune in. But I would say for now, millennials as a subset, that does skew towards male. But I think we all, we talked about on the phone, how do you bring that diversity? How do you make it more welcome from if you want to play as a pro player, or if you want to be a streamer, or if you're just interested in the content as a fan, how do we open that up, right? How do we make it feel more safe and inviting for a larger audience base?
And our audience skews even younger than yours does. What I will say about the TV thing, it's going to be really interesting to see how esports is received on television, but there's challenges with the platform. So TV as a platform is, I think just losing ground to digital platforms from just a functionality standpoint, convenience standpoint, et cetera. And when your audience is that young and your audience is that tech savvy and your average player doesn't have cable and spends way more time watching TV content digitally, I think it's a tough platform to compete on. And as digital platforms become more feature rich, more screens, more ways to watch the experience, more data, more ways to engage, more social, it's tough. Plus, when you're on sort of a mainstream channel, there's sort of an entrenched audience that is used to tuning in and being programmed to, for X content, and so they tune in. They expect to see, SEC sports, or they expect to see, whatever sort of content that the channel carries. And when they're exposed to something new, it's really tough to line up that content with that exact audience. Whereas, when you're streaming digitally, it's very sort of micro-targeted. And
how diverse do you think your audience is?
And by the way, I think one thing that's happened when games have been on TV is when they show up on a big channel like ESPN, a lot of the audience is like, what the hell is this? Yeah. Like, I've never seen this before. Why are you interrupting my college football game with this thing? Right? It actually spawns an interesting conversation because it's sort of not narrow cast to an audience that's like pulling it and opting in.
Now, when you're advertising or sponsoring, do you think about this as a way for Coca-Cola to reach millennial males, or is it a different narrative?
We do. I mean, we're very, very specific about who we target, especially in the world that we live in today, where it's very programmatic in the way you buy media. The data that's captured by the companies that create the games or the companies that broadcast the games, be they terrestrial or live stream or satellite, whatever, it's a lot of data, and we like data. That allows us to be that much more efficient about who we're reaching, how often we're reaching, and ultimately what our investment is to reach that audience. So absolutely, it's extremely important to us. And the partners that we end up working with that I think we have the most success with are the ones that can give us that level of granularity. Because that's the way the media world works today, with that level of granularity. I will say that it's also interesting in the way that these things are broadcast, especially as they're broadcast through, for example, live streaming or even traditional TV. There's ways for the audience. Like, this is an extreme. I should mention this is an extremely savvy audience today, right? I mean, these people are incredibly bright. They play some of the most sophisticated games in the world, which require so much eye-hand coordination, so much pre-thought. Brandon explains LOL really well, where he says it's kind of like chess and basketball, meshed together, and it is, and it's very very fast-paced. They're also very good at gaming things, and because they're very good at gaming things, they can easily blast past commercial advertising. They can easily escape, brand integration if they want to, which puts even more of a I guess a challenge in a way, but it's a really fun challenge to work around that, to ensure that our brand and our presence and the value that we bring not only is consumed by the player and the fan base, the viewer, but celebrated by them. They actually welcome it because we're bringing value, and when they see us coming, they're like, oh, cool, Coca-Cola's here. We know good things will come. And that's really important to us as a brand and us as a company, but it's also the way that we've approached trying to crack this space, because otherwise it's easy for them to just click past us.
But that seems like that must be one of the reasons why this space has been so slow to grow its ad dollars or its sponsorships.
It's an evolution. And when you look at the history of advertising, I think it's a blip in time. Kevin talked about the resurgence of eSports, at least in North America, maybe North America, Europe, say 5 years. That's a blip. So I think we're in early. It's an investment we've made. I think it's a good investment we've made. I think we're very happy with the results so far. But to answer your question specifically at the end of this whole thing, I would say, yes, we are extremely focused on when we are actually spending media dollars. We want to know exactly who we're reaching, how often we're reaching them, the length of time we're reaching them, because that data is available and we need to know it to continue to move forward with it.
Now, Gregory, from your perspective, what are the economics of this as a team owner, and what's the onus on you, or what's the opportunity now that people might be watching on Turner on this spring?
I mean, I think, the opportunity is that this can become a revenue generator like a traditional sports team generates revenue. So there's lots of areas that haven't been fully tapped into. The merchandise, as I mentioned, ticket sales, broadcast rights, which we're not really getting as team owners at the moment. And then there's the opportunity, I think, even beyond that. When you're in traditional sports, usually you own a team that's in one league. When we're looking at eSports, Immortals as a franchise right now competes with League of Legends. We can easily take that brand and compete in other eSports games, CSGO, Dota, Vainglory on mobile. So we can move our brand across multiple leagues and sports and sort of participate in all those leagues and generate revenue from all of them. So there's multiple opportunities rather than just being like one basketball team.
Yeah, and so in the compare and contrast between traditional sports and a league like the NHL or the NBA and what you're looking at here, what do you think the biggest challenge is for esports compared to if you were just dealing with a sports team?
Well, I think the things that still have to be figured out is there's still sort of a lot of rules and regulations that haven't gone in ways, team owners operate, players operate, their rights. A lot of that has been figured out at the basic level, but if you look at what's happened, in the NFL or the NBA or MLE, NHL, they've had years to get all this right, and they have unions, they have team owner meetings, they have board meetings. All that stuff has been started here, particularly with Riot, but it's not at the level that traditional sports are. And as more of those rules, regulations, best practices go into place, I think you'll see much more money flowing through the system.
So what does your role as a team owner look like 2 years from now? How is it different from where it is today?
Well, I'm just really an owner, but we have a whole management in place. But our team owner, chairman, Clinton, and our CEO, Noah, who are here in the audience, it's their role to work with Riot as the publisher of the game, the operator of the league, work with the players to put all these best practices in place. So, some of the things that I think haven't really been done by, a lot of the teams, but the top tier teams do them, is basically beyond just having a coach for your team, you need a player manager. You need someone who enforces that the team members are exercising, eating healthy. They have to take this seriously as a professional sport, show up mentally ready to play, and, be ready to compete. It's not that you just show up and play a game. There's a lot of training, practice, all that goes into playing a traditional sport that also goes into this. And that has to work its way completely throughout the ecosystem. And I think we've seen, particularly in Asia and other countries, they take it a lot more seriously than we have, for a longer time. So there's a better infrastructure and, quality in place. And I think that's happened here on the top tier teams, but it needs to work its way down through the whole ecosystem.
Now, and for you, Kevin, at Twitch, you must be thinking about what the viewer wants. I mean, there are the players, and then there are the viewers. What do they want to see, and how do you think the whole business is evolving to make it a more viewer-friendly endeavor?
Sure. So a lot of the features and products that we think about building typically come directly from viewer feedback. A lot of it comes from broadcaster feedback, but most broadcasters are also viewers, and so thus they're sort of power users, power viewers, so to speak. So a lot of the products we think about building are very engagement related. So a lot of people want, like chat. Whenever chat breaks, people just freak out. And so we built IMing, we built group chat, we just released friend lists recently, so we'll continue building those interactive elements around that. But viewers really want easy ways to contribute, right? So one of our biggest revenue sources for our broadcasters is our subscription program. And people like that program. It's $5 a month. You can subscribe to an individual channel, and it's basically a nod to them as your entertainer. I'm paying you, but thus I expect things in return. So right now, those things are things like emoticons in chat, a chat badge, essentially recognition things. But what a lot of broadcasters do for their audience is play games with them. So they'll say, okay, next 4 people to type 1 in chat get to queue up with me in a game, and I'll play with you. So it's like being able to actually play a game with Kobe Bryant. It's kind of crazy. But that's hard to do right now. So our goal is to make that type of process easier so that viewers are connecting more deeply with broadcasters. And then, like I mentioned earlier, on the tech side for game companies, it's being able to surface interesting moments that are happening in the game. Like right now, if you go to an average game category, it's just sorted by concurrent viewership. But people like discovering those smaller channels because the smaller channels can be more engaging. They can spend more time talking with their audience members. Whereas if you have one that's got 20, 30,000, like our top streamers, it's really hard. It's more just like fan noise almost is what the chat looks like. Every now and then you might get a question picked out. So we have this new thing called Channel Feed where people can submit questions and the broadcaster can have sort of sticky notes there. But a big part of that is, can we now help people source by a particular champion they're interested in watching, or a particular skill set, or a particular map in a game, and then help that discovery. And that's a lot of what our viewers want right now. So that's one of the big products we're working on is better discovery features to find interesting content.
I think the numbers are just striking. 10,000 live feeds, 100 million monthly active views. How many people are paying $5 a month?
We don't disclose that number, but there are a lot. And there's also donations that happen on the site. We don't process the donations ourselves, so we don't really have a good signal of that, but we have some indications that a lot of broadcasters make quite a bit of money. I mean, our goal is to have, we try to grow the living wage number for our partners. So of the 2 million monthly broadcasters, we have about 13,000 that are partnered, which means they can earn revenue from ads and subscriptions. And again, the donations don't happen on our platform, but a lot of these guys are just, they're making good livings on it, and that's our goal.
Brendan, how do you think about the experience of the live events? I mean, you're producing them like they're major sporting events. How do you think about what but yet it's a very different kind of product. How do you think about what attendees want and how to make it a worthwhile investment to buy those tickets?
Well, what's interesting is they really are major sporting events, and we often sell out right when ticketing goes on sale at big arenas. It didn't start that way, so. The reason we started doing it was really just because, if fans were telling us that they really loved watching the professional sort of circuit as much as, we had always hoped, then we were going to go big. And I think initially when we were kicking off esports, we thought it was just sort of, we didn't think a huge percentage of our audience would actually engage as spectators. A lot of us on the development side did because we had been fans of esports from long before, but it was a difficult thing to watch. It was pre-Twitch. We had to go download replays and watch replays and look for commentary and look for the handful of message boards where there would be an audience to sort of talk about, share, engage with, and as we started to see the professional play have a significant overlap with our mainstream players, we're like, okay, well, let's go big. Let's make it easy to watch. Let's make it fun to watch, both live and on broadcast. And what can we do to really push ourselves to raise those production values each and every week, each and every year? And so that's sort of what has pushed us to make sure that this sport can live up to its global audience. And today, I mean, it's truly one of the most watched sports in the world by any metric. I mean, the number of broadcast hours are pretty incredible. Like just the World Finals last year, I don't have the exact numbers, but I know it was over 300 million cumulative daily unique viewers over 12 broadcast days. So that puts a lot of pressure on us to make sure we're delivering a high quality experience.
And just to give us a sense of things, how much are people paying to attend these events in these packed arenas?
I think we try to keep ticket sales pretty reasonable. So it's probably, in the 25 to 75 range for tickets generally. And
how many people, do you know how many people go, I mean, I guess it depends.
It just depends on capacity.
Yeah. But they sell out usually.
Yeah.
What's the next step for that? How many more arenas can you fill? How much more frequently can you?
Today, arena events tend to be special events. So regular season games are generally out of our broadcast studios, which have a very limited audience. I think in our LA studio, we have a 400-person audience. And it's there for atmosphere. It's more fun to watch a broadcast when there's crowd noise, when there's players that are expressing their emotions and they're validating your emotions as you experience the match. And when I say players, I really mean fans, not the pros, but it's easy to mix those up. But so what I think can happen in the future is a larger percentage of regular season matches make their way sort of out of our central studios and into sort of regions and sort of broader experiences. But it's hard to say today what shape that will take.
But do you think 2 or 3 years from now, every week or every month, there's going to be a big event at something like Dodger Stadium? Is that the goal?
I think 2 or 3 years from now, I think is too soon for that. I think the sport, and it depends on where. So the mainstreamness, the sort of like penetration of the sport varies like from region to region. I think in North America, it still feels, the audiences are large, but it still feels niche. And it's something that flies below most people's radar because there's so many sports to compete with. You know, we have the highest density of sporting venues, arenas, TV channels, and all sorts of other entertainment. What's interesting is seeing other regions where it is the biggest sport, like period, or the second biggest sport, right? And so I think we may see that evolution happen even faster in other regions of the world.
What does it mean for you that Activision and Electronic Arts, the two biggest game makers, are both investing heavily in esports? They both created their own division. We don't really know exactly what they're going to do, but they seem to be committing resources towards it.
I think it's smart. I think it's a validation of the space, and you know, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
But is there a limited amount of time or limited number of people who are interested in esports? Do you think that it's going to spread out the business, or do you think that this is a business that could still add more viewers, players, hours watched?
I mean, it's like any sport. Like you only have, like I can't play fantasy football and fantasy baseball and watch every UFC fight. And I mean, like there's a certain amount of bandwidth that we all have with regards to sort of what sports we care about and what we focus on. I think the same is going to be true for games. You know. But we may have a peripheral interest in all of them and different, you know, or it may depend on the season. It may depend on the team. So I think ultimately, you know, I don't know how it'll pan out, but I do think that more competition is good. So I think the more folks that are focusing on trying to up the production values, up the experience, up the variety, I think that's a good thing.
Kevin, what do you think? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think there's the opportunity for esports to expand just in terms of the definition of what we consider an esport and the audience to grow. So I definitely think if you look at the fact that gaming, you know, broke out a lot, you know, take Zynga or whatever and went more casual, mobile, and really expanded the audience. Nintendo did like with the Wii, you know, expanded the console base and the amount of people who consider themselves gamers. I think the esports definition will grow. So if you look at something like Hearthstone, which is, you know, a one-on-one competition rather than a 5-on-5, you know, in League of Legends, and the gameplay is very different and shorter, that's an esport too. If we look at what's happened with Rocket League, which is a game essentially where you drive cars around, knock a ball into a goal. It's like car soccer. It's basically an esport now, and they have competitions. So I think there's the opportunity to take esports even more casual, more mainstream. And I think, you know, just as you watch basketball or baseball, you'll be watching different games that are different esports, and that will expand the audience.
But do you think that the audience that plays Candy Crush or the Zynga games is going to be as interested in watching other people play it?
I think there'll be a concept of what they consider esports that's different from what we have as esports today. That'll be, you know, interesting. I don't know if we'll get to the arenas and the leagues and all that, but I mean, if you already looked at where Supercell has moved with like Clash Royale, you know, that is a competitive game on a whole different level that people are watching and streaming.
What does the mainstreamification of esports mean for Coca-Cola?
Well, it's good. I mean, look, all boats float. The bigger the space gets, we have some history with it. We have some learnings that now are behind us, and we can put that forward to our advantage moving forward. So I think it's great. I mean, the wider it gets, the more prolific it gets, the better a brand or advertising platform it could be for us. What we have to remember about esports, especially as it relates to a company like Coca-Cola, is, I mean, look, sports is part of our heritage, and we've been with the Olympics for a long time, with FIFA. This is a natural extension for us. The way these esports are consumed is fascinating as well, in that I think you've got, I mean, Brandon touched on it a little bit, the next generation of pro player in this sport can come from anywhere, in a way. It's a global phenomenon. We're a global company, so that's attractive to us, right? But the next generation of player could come from wherever. And they don't have to go to a very traditional training camp to run up through the system and eventually matriculate and become pro. It can happen to anybody if they're dedicated to it and they have that specific skill set. That specific element, I think, this is just my personal take on it, creates it just sort of turbocharges engagement, I think, with the fan base. Because think about it, when we were all young and we played a sport, we all saw visions of ourselves being pro at one point or another. It's just sort of human nature. In this particular space, when you get good enough, you get into better teams and you're socially connected with people. I think the social connection piece of it is critically important to brand, but it's also critically important to the community as well as broadcasters and game makers. This whole sort of marriage and this whole amalgamation of I could be pro. Well, there's amateur leagues that I could join and I could actually become pro. That creates engagement. They spend a lot more time in these worlds playing these games, partly driven, I think, by that. We, of course, want to be part of that. We want to provide one of our first forays into the space was when we helped Riot with their amateur league, and it was awesome. We did it with Coke Zero. We think that it's really a fun piece of this that everybody can sort of get involved in and have fun with. And I think when that happens and you've got that pro sector, it becomes very, very powerful. Not to mention you've got a broadcasting piece of it, you've got a play piece of it, you've got the social media piece of it, and for us you've got the experiential piece of it, which is critical because we make a physical thing. We make Coca-Cola and products that you have to have in your hand. It gives us a great touch point to be able to put that forth, so it's powerful for us.
I want to open up to questions, but I want you to tell the anecdote of your kids watching esports. I think there's this question of why esports is so compelling, and I think this idea that it's aspirational, but it's sort of a democratic process. You don't have to be an athlete. It's a different kind of athlete. So tell us a little bit about sort of why you think it's so compelling.
Yeah, I think sort of that echoed. It's compelling because I think there's not the physical aspect, whereas if you look at basketball and you say, oh, I'm not going to be tall enough, I'm not going to be able to do this, as a player and compete, in the professional leagues. I think it's very close. There's a close connection between players who are streaming and the people who are watching. I watch League of Legends, competitive play. I stream it. My kids watch it with me. My 6-year-old watches it. I've taken him to matches. He's asked me if he can play League of Legends. He's a little young, and there's also games that are introducing him into the space that he competes in and plays in. And I don't think he really understands that this is esports and competitive play because he's very young, but he plays a game like Splatoon, which is essentially a first-person shooter geared towards a younger audience because it's paintball, almost type warfare that Nintendo makes. But he's being matched up competitively with people throughout the world and competing with them and playing against them. And he understands that he can watch this, it's fun to watch, and then he can go do it. He can go play the game and compete against others. And that connection is right there, it's present. You can play, you can do, and you think there's the possibility that you could actually become a professional player. I just recently talked to a friend of mine who had me meet with his teenage son, who now wants to attend UC Irvine, and that's his college goal because they've built an esports arena there, and he wants to be an esports player. So he's playing in his spare time after school, and views, his college education viable career path to go somewhere where they have an esports arena.
Yes, UC Irvine is creating this as the next sport where there'll be people on scholarships and they'll be training and competing. It's pretty amazing. So I want to open up to questions. Anyone have any questions?
On the note about college, on the note about esports in college and scholarships being provided, can someone take me through that whole process, that whole ecosystem? So if a student's going to go on scholarship to a university, at what point is the university going to benefit? How does that work from the university perspective?
Do you want to answer that one?
Well, I think, the universities are, I think they're attracting top-tier kids who want to go there. So if you look at who's viewing esports, there's a lot of research showing now that the people who are viewing esports in the younger generation, millennials, are often the well-educated people who actually have higher disposable income. So attracting students who want to play competitive video games
you're often attracting top-tier students who do well, can think strategically, and are going to be good students. So it's a benefit for them to attract those people to their schools.
But is there another level? I mean, is there going to be a college esports league that is like pre?
Well, right. I mean, maybe Brandon can probably speak to that, but they already have a college program, league that's happening.
We have our own sort of college league that we like to help support, but ultimately I think it'd be great if we see an NCAA sort of adoption, and if I had to bet, I think it's just a matter of time. Yeah.
How many years do you give it?
Oh God! Every time I make one of these predictions, it bites me. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
So NCAA is the model, effectively, in the future.
I mean, the only challenge is it has to be relevant. So people, I mean, I think there has to be a reason for colleges to want to sort of pick it up and add a sport. And there's a capital investment required and a learning curve and all that. So it has to make sense. And then one other challenge is, we're in esports, we're seeing 17-year-olds and 16-year-olds really kick ass and be pretty much ready for prime time. And so it may be hard for an NCAA ecosystem to compete with sort of the pro.
Because by 18, you're too old to get into it.
I think it feeds into the earlier point too about the aspirational ladder for an esports player is much broader, right? I mean, you don't have the physical limitations. And you play the game. It's a tangible thing you can do, and you can do it for a very long time. It can be taxing sometimes, right? Like there are injuries in esports; those are very real. But that aspirational ladder right now is really ill-defined, right? For a 16-year-old to be discovered is you get discovered when you're playing with a pro or a coach or a scout. Even the scouting system's still very, very young. But going from high school to college, again, people are sort of skipping that, right, and going straight into professional. And obviously, that's an endemic problem in sports that will solve itself over time. But yes, I mean, I agree with Brandon. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. When it happens, it's sort of hard to tell. I think the entire industry, like the pro scene in most games, is really ill-formed right now. There are very few with very good, understandable structures, with a schedule that to tune in on, with a playoff and sort of finals run. Until that's really established, I'm not sure that collegiate, they can look to the traditional sports model, but esports is quite different. So until that's really established, it might take some time for collegiate to go. But in games like League, it's already starting. But it's very much a passion project. It's clubs at schools, right, that are putting it together. But I think it's important if I were these big universities that have great sports programs, to the other part of your question, I think the benefit to them really is to show that they care about diversity of culture at their schools, right? A lot of the scholarships you hear about are sports related. And there's stigma around video games, at least when I was in college, and it was a hobby. It was very much a hobby. It was my way of connecting with people, right? Sort of the icebreaker. But then you develop deep connections around games. But it was always one of those things that was shunned, and I think that's very different now, right? This generation of kids that are going to college, it's a much more acceptable thing to do. And I think it's important to embrace that community, right? Virtually everyone I knew in college played games, but it just wasn't supported at this level. And if they show that, for us as we grow up and have kids and they go to college, like if your alma mater is supporting esports, that's very relevant to me, right? That's important to me for my school to do that. So I hope that they do. I think that they will, and it's just a matter of time.
Any more questions?
Yeah, my question is directed to Greg and to Brandon primarily. Has to do with team ownership and the genesis of how that comes about. Greg, you own a team. I hear about celebrities getting into this business. I think Shaquille O'Neal bought a team. How do you get into owning a team? Is it that there's a team in existence and they just need money to support themselves, or are there rights being sold by the game owners or league owners? How does that work?
From our perspective, there's, in North America, there's 10 teams that compete in the league, so they have a spot, and participate in the regular season that goes on. Team owners periodically want to get out and sell their spots, and then someone else can come in and acquire that spot, which is essentially what we did last year. Was we acquired a team spot, rebranded, renamed, and put our own spin on it and recruited the players we wanted for the team.
And I think it's, right now, it is a structure that is been formed and has constantly evolved to sort of support this nascent sport as it grows and morphs and changes and matures. And I think we will constantly continue to evolve the league in a way that I think supports a healthy ecosystem from all perspectives, including, you know, building really strong relationships with our owners and making sure that, you know, that they feel like partners in each of the leagues that they're involved in. Currently, we have you know, promotion relegation in the experience, which is super awesome for fans, but puts a lot of pressure on owners because your team can kind of lose its spot based on performance. And so things like that are the challenges that we have to sort of figure out how to wrestle with and on all sides.
I think we have time for one last question.
As far as Gregory and Brandon, so Martell's restricted to Riot Games, or can you also play Activision games? And how would that affect your business if they change brands? It would affect your brand if all of a sudden they're putting all their focus on Activision and no longer Riot?
Well, I mean, I'd just say if we move to another game, what we would do is we would set up a completely separate team because the skills required to play a different game is completely different. So we would always have a team competing in League of Legends that is those players, those personalities, you know, who are essentially celebrities in a sense. We would recruit other different players that we would market and promote to play a different game. So we'd then be essentially supporting two teams, two games, but we wouldn't take the focus away from supporting what's happening at League.
But for merchandising, if you have Immortals for Riot Games or Immortals for Activision, you have the same team name, but for the brand.
Yeah, so there would be, yes, we'd be selling the same merchandise, but also a lot of our selling of merchandise is also with the team players, like the names on the backs of the jerseys. So the jerseys that sell for our players that compete, you know, in League of Legends would be selling on that side, and then our jerseys that we probably sell, you know, that compete on in another game would have different names and brands, and we would hope both would be extremely popular.
I think that's a great example of some of the crazy challenges and nuances that sort of face a sport that's so nascent and so early. You know, and those are just among the hundreds of things that you know that all of a sudden we're sort of all thrust into this position of having to think about. Yeah.
But it sounds like there's this thing, well, where players in the NHL might not be good baseball players, and so you have different players with different skill sets for different games. So it's a
yes. I mean, the skill sets that we see in League is not something that we're expecting to translate to CS:GO, Counter-Strike Go. It's a completely different sport.
Like, there may end up being some, you know, Bo Jacksons and Deion Sanders, and stuff, but it's really tough. I mean, it's really tough. Yeah.
Great. Well, and maybe we have time for one last short question. There's someone back there.
Yeah, I'm faculty at UC Irvine, and I'm a big supporter of the whole eSports initiative there. But I do have one question and concern is just the issue of gender representation in eSports. And I'm just curious, as you think about the mainstreaming of the players and the audience for eSports, if that's an issue you intend to grapple with directly or not.
I mean, I think. Go ahead.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. So we've been talking about this quite a bit, and it's a topic we talk about a lot internally at Twitch. And interestingly, we realized we never really had the discussion about our own company and what our sort of diversity goals and philosophies are. So over the last month, we've been talking about that a lot and talking to a lot of folks in the industry, particularly people like T.L. Taylor at MIT, who obviously studies this and thinks about this quite a bit. You've seen some efforts in the industry to welcome a more diverse group of players. Particularly, there's been some women's-only leagues that have popped up. I'm not sure if that's the right approach. I mean, just because that's what exists in sports today doesn't mean that esports has to do it that way. Again, physical limitations, which is the reason why there is that divide in traditional sports, don't exist in esports. So, I mean, those aren't the only limitations, but I think that's another big conversation we need to have as an industry. I think everyone on this stage, and honestly everyone in the industry, really cares about this point. It's a matter about how do we do it in a way that's good for everyone that's participating, the existing players and the folks who want to come in? How do we do it where it's authentic, it doesn't feel forced? Beyond that, too, it's just, you know, sort of top of the funnel of people that are coming in to play games. it's about marketing and messaging to them too. Like, look, anyone can become a pro. Anyone can, climb this ladder, whether you become truly a professional or you play competitively in smaller leagues. That infrastructure needs to be there, and it's not there yet. But yes, very important point. A very interesting opportunity that if we, as an industry, fail at, would be terribly depressing because we do have such a diverse group that represents the larger demographic of gaming. It's an opportunity for us to really embrace that and do what other industries haven't done well. And I think that's a hot topic right now. Still early, but I think we'll do it right. And I'm very hopeful of that because everyone's talking about it.
That seems like a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much. I want to thank our panelists and thank you all for joining us today.